Hello friends, welcome to engineering tutorial. So we'll continue our discussion related to power systems, particularly the power transmission systems. So we have discussed the two main power supply schemes, power transmission methods, the high voltage AC transmission, HVAC, and the high voltage DC transmission. Okay, the basic operating principle, the blocks, the single line diagrams. So please watch that video related to AC power system and then the HVDC transmission system. And we have also discussed about the advantages and disadvantages of each transmission scheme. So in this video we'll be discussing about the transmission and distribution of electric power through conductors and the two main categories of transmission and distribution from the point of view of the installation of the conductors, the cables, the wires. Okay, the two main categories. So the two major system of conductors which are developed for the transmission and distribution system, they are the overhead system and the underground system. So as the name suggests, it is clear from that where and how the conductors are installed. So the overhead system first, that is basically the bare conductors, which are supported on poles, which you'll see on the roadside. Okay, so here the line conductors, the cables, they are hanged in air with the help of supports, poles at fixed distances, which are installed at fixed distances, and it consists of various other components, conductors, support conductors, line insulators, cross arms, and many other auxiliary components. So this is the basic overhead system, and the conductors that are used, they carry electric power from the sending end, from one end to the other. Okay, and they are generally at a suitable fixed level, safe level above the ground. And here the overhead system, it has various properties. We can say the advantages and disadvantages like we discussed in the AC and DC system. Here also the overhead system, it has certain merits and certain demerits also. So here we'll be discussing that. So first, for the overhead system, the size of conductor, it is comparatively small as compared to the underground system. So first we'll discuss the overhead, then we'll discuss the underground. So the size of the overhead conductors, it is less, it is smaller, and then they have higher voltage ratings, the voltage values, which is of the order of several hundred kilovolts for overhead lines. Okay, size of conductor is small, it has higher voltage rating. Then the current carrying capacity of overhead lines, it is comparatively more as compared to the underground lines. Okay, so this is the third important property of overhead systems. Then the overhead lines, they require less insulation as compared to the underground lines. So as less insulation is required, so less cost, less maintenance, everything less. So far what we have discussed, they are from the advantageous point of view, but there are some demerits also. First, the overhead lines, they cause interference to the nearby communication lines. Okay, so the communication line systems which are used, interference can be caused due to overhead lines, which affects the efficiency of both communication systems and power supply systems. Then the overhead lines, they are less expensive, okay, as compared to the underground lines, but they have high maintenance cost, which is required periodically. Okay, so the maintenance cost is high, but the installation, the foundation cost, that is less, but the maintenance cost is high. Then in case of overhead lines, to detect a fault and to rectify it, that is easy. Rectification, finding the fault and rectifying it, that is easy. Then the overhead lines, in case of overhead lines, the risk of fire hazards and explosion, that is more. Okay, also as overhead lines are exposed in the atmosphere, they are easily affected by the environmental effects: lightning, thunderstorm, rain, storm, moisture. So it is during cyclones, heavy winds when they flow, so they are affected by these environmental effects, and they are more prone to damage because of these environmental effects. Then the basic design, the layout of overhead lines, it is less complicated and highly flexible. Okay, the design, the planning, everything, that is less it is very simple and highly flexible. And another thing is that these overhead lines, they are used for power transmission and distribution over long distances as compared to the underground system. Okay, so this is the various properties of overhead systems. Now we'll discuss the underground systems. So overhead systems, they're bare conductors which are out there in the open, which are basically hanged with the help of support from the poles, the towers, which are installed at fixed distances. The underground system, it employs cables, underground lines, which are basically insulated and are buried under the earth's surface. Okay, and this system is used for transmission and distribution of electric power. And a typical underground cable, it has one or more, generally 2, 3, 4 different conductors with central cores, generally made up of copper or aluminium, which are insulated from each other, that is used. This is the underground system. Typically 1, 2, 3 or 4 separate conductors which are insulated from each other. So again, the underground system also has its own advantages and disadvantages. So it is basically the mirror image of overhead system, the opposite. So here for underground system, the size of the conductor which is used in underground lines, it is comparatively larger, whereas for overhead it is small. So large conductors means high cost. Then underground lines, they have lower voltage rating. For overhead it was high. The current carrying capacity of the underground lines, it is comparatively less, whereas for overhead systems it was more, it was high. Then underground lines, they require more insulation because multiple different conductors are used. To avoid interaction between them, more insulation is required. But one of the advantages, most important advantages here, is that it is free from interference from in nearby communication lines, because it is not out there in the open. Okay, it is underground, so there is no chance of any interference by nearby communication lines. So it has no danger of interference which affects the efficiency of both the system. Okay, then the initial cost, the installation cost, the foundation cost of underground lines, it is more expensive, it is very high. But the maintenance cost is low, which is opposite to the overhead system, as I said. For overhead, the initial cost is less, but the maintenance cost is high. But here, the initial cost is high, but the maintenance cost is less. Okay, so these are some of the advantages. Then For underground lines, as it is buried, the detection and clearance of fault identification. First, the identification of fault. For that, we have to again dig out the earth's surface at that point. Then it is also very difficult, as it is buried inside, it is very difficult to pinpoint the exact location where the fault is there, and then to rectify it, it is time taking and it is not that easy. So it is difficult, the finding and rectification of fault. Then as it is buried, so the risk of explosion or fire, it is less in case of underground line. And again, it is not there in the open, it is not exposed to the atmosphere, so it has no chance of getting affected by the environmental effects, environmental conditions. Okay, and the design and the layout of the planning, the whole thing of underground lines, it is very complicated, it is very complex. That is, it is less flexible as compared to the overhead lines. And as the overhead lines, they are used for power transmission and distribution over large distances, the underground lines, they are used for power transmission and distribution over short to moderate distances because of various technical difficulties, and also because of economic considerations, because it is very expensive, the initial cost. Okay, so these are some of the properties of underground systems. So we cannot say that one system is superior to the other, because each has its own merits and demerits which are equally balanced. So one has to analyze different factors, the technical requirements, the operational considerations, the economic considerations, the location where the power transmission and distribution system has to be installed. So taking into account various things, a suitable choice is made. Okay, weighing in both the advantages and disadvantages of both the systems, that is the overhead and the underground. Okay, so these are some of the basic concepts related to power transmission and distribution through conductors, mainly dividing into two main categories, the overhead and the underground system. Okay, so friends, I hope you like this video, and please subscribe my channel Engineering Tutorial for more such videos related to engineering, science and technology. Have a great day. Thank you very much.